Since I came up through the American education system, I think it's only fair I get a pass for not knowing this little secret about Venezuela that no one seems to be talking about. Well, except maybe the US government, who's probably using it against them today, but who knows? So, let's get right into it. Venezuela is a country with a split population of either mestizos or white European ancestry, with African and indigenous groups making up the rest of the 31 million Venezuelans. In December of 1823, President James Monroe, during his annual speech to Congress, pretty much created the official "We can do anything in the world" memo, when he invoked what is now known as the Monroe Doctrine. The Monroe Doctrine is a warning to every country in the world to not have any political influence in the Western Hemisphere, which is ironic considering the United States have puppet governments on every corner of the globe. It's like if the neighborhood bully started nailing his 95 thesis of what his victims can and can't do. The Monroe Doctrine itself is well known in Latin American history, but what's not talked about is how one country, that is Venezuela, went out of its way to utilize it for themselves when in fact that same doctrine was designed to control that same nation. In 1865, the Monroe Doctrine was officially used for the first time in Mexico, but unofficially it was already being used throughout Latin America and Venezuela, who, to my knowledge, was the first victim of the Monroe Doctrine. But why would Venezuela even want to shake hands with the evil empire, the United States, which was birthed out of the British Empire? You know that ancient proverb that goes something like, "The enemy of my enemy is my friend"? Well, Venezuela thought they had a friend in the United States when they tried to use the Monroe Doctrine to make the case that the British Empire was gaining too much influence in the United States' backyard, because Britain had stolen about 60,000 square miles of Venezuelan land, which is now officially part of the Essequibo region in Guyana today. This was practically Venezuela telling the world that the United States is its master and should show the world by enforcing the Monroe Doctrine against the British Empire. Venezuela would quickly learn that the United States has no friends, but only interest, because they would lose the court battle in 1895 against the British Empire after the case was brought to a US Border Commission court. From that moment forward, Venezuela really hasn't had a prosperous time period in the history of the country because it's been under the control of the United States ever since. In fact, 90% of the Western Hemisphere in places like Cuba, Haiti, Dominican Republic, Puerto Rico, Chile, Mexico, Argentina, Brazil, Colombia, Jamaica, Panama, Nicaragua, Guatemala, Bolivia, and even Guyana, to name a few, have been invaded or politically influenced by the United States and the Monroe Doctrine over the past century and a half. Even with the rise of the likes of Chavez and Maduro, the Monroe Doctrine seems to be something that has been looming over their heads ever since. But what makes Venezuela different is the fact that they wanted it to be used against them in order to get back what some might say rightfully belongs to them. In my opinion, I think Venezuela has a right to invade and take back Guyana from the British Empire, just like the Native American communities in America have the right to start a war and take their land back. But that would be suicide for the country today because of the other problems the country's facing. It's suicide because this would be the excuse the US and its neocons seek in order to invade without the need for any false flag like humanitarian efforts, which is the narrative currently being pushed with the Juan Guaido-backed coup attempt currently on the way. So, if Venezuela has any ounce of common sense, it would be wise to leave their eastern neighbors alone for the time being.